Old charts called it Sandalwood Island for the aromatic forests which once covered these hills. The sandalwood has all gone to provide incense for the temples and churches of the world. But it cleared the way for the sandalwood horse, a unique breed much sought after by colonial cavalry regiments to fight their tropical wars.
Yeah.
In fact, we'd long heard of a battle being fought here once a year, a deadly ritual war sport between armies of mounted warriors. But just when it would take place seemed to be anybody's guess. High above the valley of Wanokaka, on the hilltop sanctuary of Ububewi, we found 3 old priests carefully observing the moon. It was they who would have to decide a month in advance the correct day for the battle. While they watched the sky, we settled in to wait at the village of Puli, which overlooks the sacred cove of Nyali, the goddess of the sea. Life in Puli was so pleasant, I didn't mind if the priests never came up with a battle day. One morning, Puli was paid a formal visit by the high priest of the valley. He was the man we'd heard could tell us most about Sumba's ways and beliefs. So a few days later, appropriately dressed, I thought, I took the gift of a live chicken and our questions up to his sanctuary at the far end of the valley. Any social occasion in Sumba calls for the sharing of betel nut. It's a mild narcotic, which definitely alters one's perception, but that's nothing to what it does to one's mouth. It only works if it's chewed with just the right proportions of the pepper flower and powdered mineral lime. The 3 elements turned my mouth into a burning cauldron of saliva. You're supposed to spit it out, but not on yourself. Eventually, it'll destroy your teeth, and then, like the old priest, you must pre-mix the paste to a gummable consistency. I wanted to know what this ritual battle was all about, but they said they'd have to ask the approval of the Marapu gods before they'd even talk to us about it. The answer would be in the entrails of our unfortunate chicken. The omens did not augur well for an interview. One has seen inside the chicken that, in fact, the Marapu gods are jolly angry. And this is not the time, this is not the time or the month. And furthermore, that they wouldn't mind it at all. If we make an offering in the Siripinang plate on our departure. Hard cash, eh? Yes, understand it can be done. If the offering was generous enough, they told us, the gods might be persuaded to change their minds. But it struck me as a bad kick-off somehow, being a party to the bribery and corruption of the gods.
We decided to look elsewhere for some answers. And there were clues to their past and present standing all around us. In Europe, we haven't raised such megaliths since the days of the Druids. But these are still going up today as they have been since before the time of Christ, for Sumba is a living megalithic culture. And these granite blocks are still hewn and hauled from the sacred quarries, just as they were when this film was shot in the 1920s. They're dragged by brute force for many miles to the burial sites. Important people are entombed beneath them, together with their most valuable possessions. Within living memory, these would include their sacrificed slaves. Sumba has a long tradition of human sacrifice. One day, the priests came down to make offerings to the goddess of the sea. It was their way of announcing that the month of taboo, leading up to the ritual battle, had begun. This would be a sacred place for the whole month, which meant no more fishing or swimming on the goddess's beach. And the high priest made quite sure nobody violated that taboo. We still wanted to find out just what was going to happen and why, but he remained his usual secretive self. Then we met Jago Pana, a famous veteran of the Pesola. The ritual battle we'd come to see. He reminisced about the recent kills in the Pesola. He says the Pesola reflects an eternal conflict between the upper world of the Marapu gods and the lower world of the sea. It's from this conflict that all creation arises. And the task of humans, he says, is to help keep the balance. The entire valley is patterned to reflect this dualism. The Pesola is fought between the inland villages who champion the Marapu gods and those of the coast who champion Nyali, the goddess of the sea. The night before the battle is the most psychically dangerous of the year. All the ancestors and spirits are on the prowl. Only the priests dare venture out, in procession down towards the sea. They reached Puli just before dawn. The symbolic umbilical cord, which had linked the oldest house to the oldest grave, was now untied. The month of taboo was ended. Now the whole valley could go down to the beach, which swarmed on this one dawn a year with an edible sea worm. They see them as a gift from the sea goddess of part of her body. They only swarm this one day a year, the dawn of the Pesola battle. So the priests had been watching the stars, I realized, to detect the annual rhythms of their island. Priests of the upper and lower worlds invoked the hidden forces they represented to join in the battle. It's they who would toss the first spears of the Pesola. To me, it seemed at first more like a chaotic free-for-all than a ritual. Then I spotted our friend Jago Pana in action. He had told us that everyone present would be at risk that day. Even the spectators were in the hands of the spirits. At least one death was expected, but the spilling of some human blood was essential. Without it, there could be no equilibrium between the unseen forces. I now realized we weren't only witnesses, but also participants in a veiled form of human sacrifice. In recent years, the government has decreed that the spears be blunted, a move which Jago Pana claims makes the Pesola more dangerous than before. Because it's more difficult to draw blood, there's a tendency to go for a kill. A young warrior has received a direct hit to the temple. Within an hour, he will be dead. It's by no means the end of the day's sport, but the essential sacrifice has been made. The planting season can now begin. The conflict between the forces of the upper and lower worlds has been resolved. For another year, the life cycles of this hidden valley can flow as before.